You ready? 5 o'clock, and we'll call the meeting to order. Would you do a roll call vote, or everybody's here that's here? The quorum has been established.
We have established.
Okay. Approval of the agenda and minutes.
We make a motion to approve them.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the agenda and the April 13th minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, recognition of visitor and visitor comments. As always, we start out with our comments and questions from or comments from the audience.
Yeah,
And you'll make them at the podium. The reason why you make them at the podium is so that this is on camera and so that it can be recorded or televised. So and by the way, state your name, please. And make sure there's a sign up sheet in the back. If you speak, make sure you sign your name on there. And a contact information so that if we have follow-up, we can follow up. Because sometimes people get up and they say their spiel and we want to follow up, but we have no idea who it is. And so just make sure of that, so we can make sure we have comments, so we can follow up with your comments if there's a follow-up. So who would like to go first? Come on up.
and push the little red or the little button with the little person's head on the right hand side. And then it lights up and then you can talk.
Good. Okay, my name is Barb Kleist. Address is E5351 750th Avenue. I just have one, I guess, comment or question. During the signing process, I know the petitions to form this group, they had the names of property owners to sign. And on properties that we own, my husband and I own multiple properties with multiple family members. And I guess I just want to make sure you get the names for the annual meeting for the voting members, because during the signing process, and I don't know how many other properties this affected, but there were only 2 names. And when I spoke with the Register of Deeds office, they, on the tax bill, there's the primary owner that the tax bill gets mailed to, and then there are co-owners. So during the signing process, the only names that were on the list to sign were the property owners that the tax bill would be mailed to. In our case, we have multiple properties, and so we have my husband and I as listed as owners, but we also have 3 more siblings who are co-owners. So technically there's 5 people on our property that are actual owners. So I don't know. When I talked with the Register of Deeds office, and they said that every person that is an owner of the property should be a voting member or a signing member. So I guess I just want to, and I don't know, and that may have affected things going, during the signing process. They're technically, I don't know how many other properties within the district there are, but that are in our situation. But I know that there were just 2 names of the 5 on, and we have 3 different properties with multiple. So I just want to know, for the annual meeting, so that the rest of the family members are able to vote when it comes time to vote.
Okay.
So,
Do you want me to answer this?
Go ahead, Al.
It's gonna be kind of weird because,
You can pick that mic up and turn around
Okay.
if you need to.
okay. Here's how it works for the annual meeting. Okay, there are owners and then there are residents. Okay, property owners and residents are able to vote. So in other words, if you have a rental property and people are renting, they get to vote as well as the owner gets to vote. Okay, in the state of Wisconsin, the voting rules are meant to be inclusive, not exclusive.
right, we don't have any rentals. They're all,
Okay,
they're
okay,
just, we
okay.
all,
And so what we would need to, if they're not residents and they're not listed as an owner on the deed, we'll probably have to get a clarification for that one specifically. There's a couple of different ways that we can handle it. But I would want to have somebody clarify it for me that knows more about this than me. It would
Yeah.
be my understanding that if they aren't listed, for example, if a couple owns or lives on or owns a piece of property and the spouse is not listed as the owner, they too get a right to because they get a right to vote. But we have a form that they're going to sign saying that they're eligible to vote and all of those kinds of things.
okay,
So what I would say is that let us get clarification on that because I'm sure that that you're not going to be the only one.
right,
And we can then get back to you make sure that you leave your
Yeah.
contact information
Yeah.
and we can get back to you on that.
Are the properties in a trust?
no,
Okay.
no.
Because that would
It-
change it further.
And the Register of Deeds office explained it to me as my husband and I are listed as the owners on the tax bill because the tax bill gets mailed to our house. All 5 people are on the tax deed as owners. But they can't send the tax bill they don't send it to 5 people. They send it to one address. So they have to have one address to send the tax bill to. But when you pull up the parcel information,
Right.
then you have my husband and I as owners, and then 2 sisters and a brother-in-law as co-owners. And on the tax deed, all 5 names are on the tax deeds.
Again, I'm not an expert at this and this is
Yeah.
my first time through, but if they're listed on the deed, you have evidence that they are an owner.
Yeah.
Then they would have a vote.
Okay,
But I would want somebody to have that, to clarify that,
I know.
other than me.
Yeah, and I talked to a lady in the Register of Deeds office here in
Yeah.
this building, and I think probably when you get the names, I think maybe you have to ask for the owners and the co-owners. I don't know. Or,
And it might be something in state statute too, how it's all governed, right? Possibly.
I'm sure it may not be listed in statute, but at least in case law,
Sure.
it's probably defined more in case law than it is in the statute. Right,
okay,
we can get that answer for you.
sure. I just wanted to let you know, so as you're getting things ready for the annual meeting,
Right. Right.
that we make sure we include everyone that
Right.
should be included.
We are going to make our best effort to include everybody if you know of somebody out there that isn't listed as an owner, but as a resident, somebody that rents or whatever, if they get their name and address to us, we can make sure that they get the information prior to the meeting.
Okay.
That's the best we can do.
So if there's a property that has an owner and a renter, they both Okay, I do know of some people in our neighborhood that rent, so
Right, right,
I guess I'll mention it to them.
right,
I guess I hadn't thought about that,
right.
so, okay,
All right,
all right, sounds good.
we'll do our best.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Push the little button that has a little face. Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Okay, my name's Simon Janesco. I'm just curious of, like, especially with concerns from the previous lady, like, how did you determine what's the number of people you need for a petition if you, it seems like you clearly don't even know how many people are eligible.
Well, we needed to have 51% of the number of owners on the lake. The number was determined by the county, and that was set at 963, somewhere in that area. So we needed to get 51% of that number.
Okay,
So they determined the number.
The other thing is to note that signing the petition is separate from voting at the annual meeting. Because the annual meeting is far more inclusive than the signing of the petition.
right, but I guess to the lady's point, I mean, you had 3 people that weren't counted in the voting that weren't even, it seems like they weren't, I mean, how do we know that they were included in that 900 number to establish the,
The county gave us the number.
right, but
That's defined by statute, who signs, who is able to sign that is in statute. This is, for the voting purposes a resident.
do they have
A
a,
resident couldn't sign the petition. You had to be an owner.
Had to be.
well, that's fine, but she had 5 owners. And it sounds like those weren't counted. I mean, is there a list of the owners
Yes.
that were the 900 and some?
Came from the county.
And that can be verified that like the 3 other owners were on that?
I don't know specifically in Barb's case, but yeah, the rest of them should be able to.
I mean, I guess the point is if there was some miss there, how does the rest, how do we guarantee that there was 51%?
The Simon is the question that, was it just the owners that are listed on the tax roll, or was it the co-owners that are included in the 963?
That could be part of the question.
I think that's a good question, yeah.
I mean, part of it is, I mean, I didn't even know there was a petition. I didn't even know there was a lake association. I didn't even know there was any of this until my neighbor told me. Like, I didn't know there was a meeting tonight. Like, how is this all communicated?
Where do you
This-
live?
I live in 833rd Avenue and just north of Jake's. And none of this was known. And he's like, well, there's a Facebook page I guess you should know about. It seems frustrating that this has already
So
been established and voted on, like the committee and everything, without me ever getting one.
I agree, Simon. It's the best news source that I've found for county goings on as far as county government is the Colfax Messenger. So most of the county meetings are covered in there, as well as the TR&D, which is the subcommittee that took this on, that eventually recommended it to the full board of supervisors.
Jerry, turn your mic on, please. Thanks.
Yeah, you get the whole.
So the Colfax Messenger covers the
I don't know what that
subcommittees.
is.
It's a newspaper. Remember
Okay.
the old fashioned, the ones they print?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't
it gets
get the
delivered to your
newspaper.
house in the mail.
Yeah.
About $2 a week, I think. That's how you could
I don't,
be aware of this.
so I gotta pay for a newspaper and look for. And
Or
actively.
you can go on the
actively
Facebook
look.
page or on our website, but how do you, those don't push to you without, yeah, so.
Right, seems like a mailer should have been sent out to people that were affected. Like, how
There
does
was
that-
a lot of discussion about how the signatures were garnered and the information that was distributed because it was not mailed. So yes, I agree. Those are all very valid things, but unfortunately, they're water under the bridge, so to speak. The
So
district has been created.
Simon was your first name, right?
Sure,
Do you live on the lake?
I do live on the lake.
Okay, I'm just looking at 833rd here and I'm sorry, I
E5799.
E5799, so it's on the other side. Got it. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
so
Well, one of the things that we struggled with at the beginning, this is only our third meeting. So you've only missed 2 meetings of this group. Okay? This group was appointed by the county. After it was approved at the county level, they appointed 3 of us. Jim is the representative from the county supervisors. Tom is representative from the town of Sherman, and there were 3 of us that were appointed by the county board of supervisors to sit in this as this group. This group is now only functioning until the annual meeting. At the annual meeting, the community of people on the lake get to vote who's going, there's 3 positions now that the people on the lake can vote for representation in this group. And that takes, then this group, well, those 2, well, they'll continue in their positions. They'll serve as long as the township and the county board wants them. The 3 of us can either run for election at the annual meeting, or we have to run at the, we don't, our positions don't continue. So from the purpose of this board is to get us to the first annual meeting. Then from the annual meeting, then the Lake District board takes, then there will be a formal elected board with people that serve on the 3-year terms.
okay, so is the voting at that annual meeting?
Yes.
So is there a
the
ballot
budget-
established ahead of that?
Yes,
And-
there is an agenda and a budget. The function of that annual meeting, the biggest function of that annual meeting is to approve the budget, which the people that are residents and owners of property on the lake get to vote on.
Right, so that first one, is there gonna be a budget that
Yes.
you guys are setting?
Yeah, we're gonna try to. And we're-
Without lake representation, without people from the lake representing?
Well, we gotta start someplace. And so we're gonna put together a budget. And then there are probably, depending on, that's discussion for tonight on how that's gonna work. And then so, based on, how that budget is approved by this group, then that goes to the annual meeting, then to be approved by the people in the community. And I am sure that the, second budget, the second budget will be a function of what the board decides at that point.
Okay, how does somebody get on the ballot?
You can either show up or make sure that you let us know when we prior to that time. Prior to
That's
the annual
just-
meeting.
Yeah, I guess it's, to me, seems very unorganized, and I mean, there's no communication. Like I said, I had to find out from my neighbor that this was even a thing that could affect my taxes, and
Well,
like, I don't even understand what's the charter of it? Like, is there a charter for this lake association?
well, it's to protect and conserve the lake. That's our charter.
Well, does that mean, like, what does that mean? I don't even, I mean, it just seems like there should be a charter so you can have limiting bounds, so you know what you're voting on and what you're, because I don't want to, like, pay for anything and everything. Like I can't control what people are dumping in the river. And if I'm paying taxes on this, is this gonna be a private lake then? Like, can we like restrict people at boat launches? I mean, there's all these questions about, like, so you're focusing on the people that live on the lake, but a lot that happens to the lake happens because of people upstream from the lake.
Right.
And a lot of people that enjoy the lake don't live on the lake. So
Right.
it just doesn't seem like a very, and then like the people that live on the lake, and I can just speak for myself, haven't even been communicated what this is about, what the charter is, what the purpose is, what's the restrictions, what's the scope, any of it.
We're,
It's super frustrating.
we're working on defining that. And I would encourage you to come to meetings.
I would argue there is not a charter yet.
No.
We really don't have bylaws. We don't have.
Right.
Charters. We have a lake district that was created by the County Board of Supervisors, period.
And what was the purpose of creating a lake district?
To clean up the lake.
Okay, so you're gonna make people that live on the lake responsible for something that happens upstream. This is awesome. Okay. Thank you.
My name is Adam Mux. I live at E64648 67th Avenue. Been following this process for probably a year. As a citizen, I felt that this group did a great job at making the agenda visible. All the stuff is posted on county board websites. There's videos. I'd just like to thank everybody that's put the work into this so far, and what I've seen since the county board made the vote to establish this of U4. I think things are looking great, and the public accessibility to what's happening here has been great. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Adam.
Mark Kinney, N 7137 540th Street. For the speaker to back, the first suggestion to you is go to the state chapter, the state laws, and read what a lake district is. This was put in place by the state. Secondly, the odds of you not getting something hung on your door by the people that did this is slim to none, but it is what it is. They made tremendous effort. They also posted at Jake's and Elk Point and had 3 open meetings. So there was opportunity. I just want you to understand. That group made the most wonderful effort. It was unbelievable. They got 50% of the people that they needed. Those people volunteered and came to the 3 meetings they held. They didn't even need to go canvass. The other part is there were several more volunteers, myself included, who knocked on doors. How yours didn't get knocked on, I have no idea. And we went back several times until we found them. In my case, I went back to somebody 3 and 4 and 5 times that had questions. I went and got answers and came back. So you can find it in the statute from the state and learn what a lake district is and why it's set up. And again, like the last speaker said, that group did one fantastic job. And we're headed in the right direction. It's something that I've lived on this lake for 46 years. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Oh, one. I have one that was sent to me via email. This is from Julie Lammer, who lives on 540th Street. She asked me to please bring up the buoy situation in the channel. It is a safety, erosion, and personal property concern to our lakeshore and our boats. Whoever put the buoys in this year compared to last year, which was the best year so far in the past 8, they're about 50 to 75 yards downstream from current location. We're at the smallest part of the channel before Jake's. As a Realtor and bringing new tax-paying families to the lake, it has already been brought to my attention. Help Julie, we want the whole channel lake to the upper lake set with buoys for slow wake. To be honest, I don't know who the respectful, I know who the respectful lake owners are. It is the visitors and young kids that abuse the power of speed and get their thrills out of pulling their throttles way back, causing huge waves to hit our properties and rock all our boats and slam the shoreline. There's no way where the buoys are placed this year I could ever let my grandkids or big kids think of swimming or floating by our dock. As a Realtor, voice, and a homeowner, I have to reach out. I trust the Lake District to help improve all the areas of Tainter Lake. Here is one issue. Let's get on it somehow sooner than later before it damages someone's livelihood, property, and the love for Tainter Lake. P.S. I have a check on the behalf of my seller, the late Dan Nealon and Heidi Nealon, for the Lake District. She hopes to be here later this evening. And that's it. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. I think we'll start moving forward with the agenda. Oh, I forgot, commissioner reports and communication. Things that the commissioners would like to report since the last meeting.
I attended a water quality conference in Stevens Point. I attended 2 different sessions, one morning, one afternoon, and it was very helpful. The first one was for new commissioners to Lake District, which was extremely helpful. They covered a lot of information that helped put us or start us in the right direction, which is really necessary, because even though there are some good resources for a Lake District, it's really not a paint by numbers setup at all. You have to email a lot of contacts throughout the state who have been through the same thing that you are going through to try to figure things out. So it was really good for that. In the afternoon, I attended a session on being the not the secretary, the treasurer. And while I'm not the treasurer, I took notes and I'll pass that information along. It was good. And although I didn't understand all of it, most of the other people there took notes and they did their best to understand it as well. So that's where I am.
Okay. Jerry?
I don't see a spot in the agenda about Zach's resignation. I just wanted to take this opportunity to suggest that we appoint another, what are we, board member?
Right. Let me, let's get to that at the end, because we really can't take action on that. That happened late. We can talk about it, but we can't take any action tonight on that because it's not on the agenda. So that just came in so late that we couldn't get the agenda modified. So it didn't get posted, so we can acknowledge, well, we had a resignation of Zach Raff, took a federal job, and I don't know if he sent a letter of resignation only to me or he did to individual board members or
Yeah.
okay, so you all knew, I didn't know, and so that's why I sent it out to you. Zach has resigned from the board, so we're down to 4 members. This actually, I called Eric Olson at he's the chairperson for the state water or organization that runs lake districts. And, he's told me yesterday that he's never had this issue before. And so, in state statute, there's nothing in the People of the Lakes book, the guide for Wisconsin Lake Organizations. There's nothing in there. There's nothing in the statute that talks about how to fill a vacancy in the initial board. There's statute as to how to fill it in the established board after the first annual meeting, but the statute is silent. So, that being said, we have to figure out what we want to do. The only thing is that we can't take any action on it tonight because it isn't on the agenda. So if that's something that we need to discuss in greater detail, then we need to post a meeting and have another meeting and probably just to deal with that. So that's kind of where that's at with that. So you want another meeting? It'd be to be able to talk about it. There's really three options. And all the options are valid because there's no option that says, there's nothing that says that we can't do it. One of them would be that we run with 4 board members. And you have 4 board members instead of 5. Okay. Second option would be that you model it after the statute that says filling a vacancy in an established board where the president nominates and or brings forward the names and the board approves the person, or you can go back to the county and the county can because Zach's position was appointed by the county then would be responsible for appointing that person. So those basically are the 3 options that I'm aware of. And so, but we'd have to have kind of a meeting to be able to discuss that at length and to take formal action on that. So I'm sensing a meeting is in the future.
Pretty much have to, almost, I guess,
Yeah,
because it didn't get on this agenda, so.
Right.
yep, that's fine.
Okay, so when we put down the next meeting of the Board of Commissioners, we'll have that meeting plus the monthly meeting. And we'll figure out a time for it at that point. Okay. Just for the sake of discussion, Jim, when's the county board meet next?
The county board itself
Yes,
might be next Wednesday. You look,
But we came out of the PRD.
well, but we are approved by the county, right? The formal approval was through the county.
but the PRD submitted the names to the county.
Right.
Exactly.
But
Maybe corporate counsel could,
yeah, maybe that's a question for
yeah,
Nick.
or at least the chair of the county to see who that. Because,
he would have no idea. Nick would probably be closer, corporation counsel, as far as coming up with
right,
steps.
if it can be done through the committee,
Mhm.
or it has to go through the full board, that's kind of their business as to how that would work, right?
Yes. And the next PR&D committee meeting is the 23rd of this month. The next county board meeting is next Wednesday. Less than a week. So I can check with Nick, Corporation Counsel tomorrow
Okay,
and just ask him, here's the situation, what do we do?
right,
What's the recommendation?
right. And because it involves an appointment, I would say that that's a pretty good line into corporate counsel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else that you wanted to?
No, thank you.
Okay. I also attended the Lakes and Rivers Convention at Stevens Point. It was very informative. I did snag 2 books extra. If you want one, if you want a hard copy book, you can have one.
Sure.
But for anybody else in the audience, this book is online. Okay, and it's People of the Lakes. Just send me an email if you don't know, if you want to get a copy of it. But the nice thing about this book, first of all, if you're like me, I like to write in books. I can't write on the pages and highlight stuff. But the nice thing is that it's everything is referenced to the statute. So it not only gives you the explanation, a general explanation, it doesn't cover every specific thing, but it gives a general explanation as to the operation and how the board works. Just maybe to save yourself a little anguish, start at chapter 4 or 5. Chapter 5, because that's the function of this lake district. Chapters 1, well, actually 2 and 3 and 4 are the signature process. Like, that's all been done. Okay, that's but how we operate, voting and everything else is in here. Sample budgets, what we're required to do. This, by the way, is also the manual that we're using as a committee to guide us. So, I also met with Alex Smith. He's the DNR biologist that will be our technical advisor, and he'll be the one that is going to be advising us through the grant writing process. He's also the one that has to sign off on any of the grants that we submit. That whole grant process is adds a different wrinkle to the budgetary process. And I kind of alluded that to my explanation that I put together about the budgeting process, is that the state, when we write state grants, the state will fund grants, but remember, we have to upfront the money first, and then they'll reimburse us at the end. They don't upfront the money. So we have to make sure that we have that when we put budgets together, and if we anticipate writing grants, we have to have the money to do the work and then get reimbursed. It's a fine point, but I want people to be aware of that. That's how that budget process works. And I will continue to meet with people within the community and state agencies. I have on my list, I have several more. One of them, which is the fish biologist. The other thing is I'm reaching out to these people. Hopefully that we can get them to come in and be speakers at our meetings. Once we get the annual meeting done, I think our meeting agendas are full up until August. But after that, it would be nice to be able to get some of these experts in and to give us a little bit wider context of what's taking place. Again, as it was stated in the comments, all this information is posted on our website. Again, it isn't pushed out to you, but all you got to do is go on the website and check it. Jim's done an excellent job of keeping things up to date. Just to reiterate, we post, our meeting agendas are legally posted in the, Colfax Messenger and the Dunn County News. Now, most people, get a lot of their information on Facebook and whatnot, and we're also posting on Facebook. So that's where all our meeting agenda stuff is going. All our information is going to be on that website. That'll probably be our main repository for information.
They're also posted at Jake's, at Elk Point, and at the boat landing across from Jake's.
Okay. And I do send copies of the agenda to all of the town clerks that are surrounding the lakes. So they have it. Whether they post it or not, that's up to them and that's up to their policy. But we've done everything we can other than mailing an individual letter to everybody every time we have a meeting, which is a little difficult. Anything else? That's all I have. That was enough. Okay, budget and finance. Employer identification number.
Got it. There's actually, once I figured out where to go, it was about a 10-minute operation. And I have our EIN, and it has been sent to the Department of Revenue, to the county, and I have 2 insurance brokers that have been given our EIN as well to provide bids on insurance. That was one thing that was holding us up. So that's the use of the EIN.
Okay. Questions? Okay, naming the financial institution for our bank account. Now that we have an EIN number, now we can actually open a bank account and deposit money from people that have donated. So up until this point, we haven't been able to do that. Suggestions? Naming a bank.
I am going to suggest Wisconsin Credit Union. Not only are they convenient here in town, but they're a really good community partner. And they're an excellent benefactor. And they are my choice for my accounts. And they've been really good to work with. So that's why I would suggest Wisconsin.
I don't have any problem with that.
Jerry, Tim,
I think that's great.
would you put that in the form of a motion, Tom? We
I
can
would-
act on that.
Yeah.
That's in the agenda.
I will make a motion that we use Wisconsin Credit Union as our financial institution.
A second?
The item here says bank account. Is there a specific adjective to that bank account? Is that a checking? Is it a savings? What is it?
Imagine.
What? I would assume it's going to be a checking account.
I would agree, Tom. I'm just asking
Yeah, all right.
for clarity.
How about if I start over? Okay.
New
All right,
motion?
I would like to make a motion to name Wisconsin Credit Union as our financial institution for our checking account.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
There's been a motion and a second to name Wisconsin Credit Union for our checking account and banking needs. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Crowdsource funding update, Jim?
Looking into it, it looks like actually quite a few municipalities, quasi-government organizations have been using crowdsourcing, and multiple sources for doing that type of, raising money. I'm still not a little hazy on whether GoFundMe is that vehicle for doing that, but I've seen that other municipalities are doing stuff using other sources. Until we had a bank account, it really didn't, it was kind of just academic at this point, but
Right.
now that we have one, I can get some clarity whether GoFundMe actually will allow that in their rules or whatever. And if not, there are other options, even just putting a donation button on the website itself and using like a PayPal account, which also then with a bank account can then get established for donations.
Okay. All right. So what do you think is timeline on this?
Well, I think by next meeting, we could have some actual options to
Vote
go.
on?
Yeah. Say,
Okay.
like, here's the options, here's what the fees are involved with it, that type of thing.
Okay, so let's put that on the next agenda then. And we'll put that on the monthly meeting agenda then.
Yep.
That'll give you a little time to work through that. Okay, budget process, and actually the budget process and the discussion and review of the tax impact for the lake, for the Tainter Lake District, they're kind of rolled into one. You can't have one without the other. Okay. And so what I attempted to do, and so you can throw rocks at me, but be gentle. Don't throw them fast and hard. What I did is I took a stab at the budget process and tax implications and defining that and what it is, because I've heard a lot of different things about everything from special assessments down to I won't be able to live in my house anymore on the lake. And so what I wanted to do is put something down in writing so that we would have a discussion. Notice I put draft on the copy that I sent to you. By the way, I think we made 10 copies to hand out, and so share with each other if you didn't get one. But it's a draft. And I was not going, this is only Al speaking. It's not the board. It's not from the board. So as of such, it is not an explanation from the entire board. I laid it out in this order for a specific reason is first of all, that you can't have a tax impact unless you have a budget. Okay, you can't calculate the tax impact on my property until I know how much money that the district is going to levy. You can't have a levy until you have a budget. And that budget is approved by the residents and owners of property on the lake. Okay, so if you live in the town, if you live in the city of Menominee, you can't vote at the annual meeting. But that's the power of the annual meeting, is that you vote on the budget. And what goes in the budget, and this group is responsible for putting that budget together, and realize that this group is putting a budget together in a condensed timeline. Normally, you would have a full year to put a budget together. A lot of times, and I made note of that in this explanation, that we may be looking at 2 years of budgets, especially if we're going after grants and those kinds of things, because you're going to have to plan for those kinds of expenditures. You're going to have, and the other thing is, remember, the lake is seasonal. You don't do much shore restoration unless you're dumping rocks on the ice. You don't do that in the wintertime. Most of the work comes in the summertime. Well, remember, your budget's approved in November for the following year, and realize that the budget that we're putting together this year is for 2024. We have no money. Okay. The only money that we have is what's been donated. So you start with the budget, and as I said at the beginning of this, is that it's created from January, essentially, because that's, we run on a calendar year budget. And so we run from January to December 31st. And, and I'd said 30 days before the annual meeting. 30 days before the annual meeting. The reason why I said that is because by statute, we have to send to each land, a resident and property owner, we have to send to them a budget, a summary of the budget. So everybody will get a budget, and we send that to them. We've also talked, I think it's a good idea that we post the budget summary in the Colfax Messenger and the Dunn County News, just like school districts do, before their annual meeting. And every resident that we can possibly find will get a copy of this in the mail. That's why we're fundraising now, is so that we can afford to send all of this out by mail. And so we put the budget together. I would, and I'm discussing now when I say that there's an executive committee of the Board of the Commissioners that would put the budget together. I'm really referring to how it should move once we have a full board and not the initial board. We're down to 4 members now. If this board wants to put this year's budget together, I think that's great. But I'm saying the responsibility for putting the budget together should fall. And this is, again, my recommendation for the treasurer, secretary, and the chairperson of the Lake District Board. Now, that does not preclude any of the other board members from showing up at the board. It's and they, of course, would be able to participate. It's just that those 3 would be responsible for making sure that it meets the deadlines to be able to be put in front of the public. And then that committee would then bring forward, just like in other forms of government, the committee would bring it forward for approval of the full board. And then the full board then that would be the budget that would be proposed at the annual meeting. Now, in that whole thing, as the committee wants, they can have, they can invite people to present at that meeting. They can, once you have more time, you can obviously be far more inclusive. But we're kind of in we have to keep this ball moving forward as we go. So that's the budget. And that's where I put my explanation for that. The annual meeting, obviously, it's got to be posted. It has to be sent to every person. Implementation, there again, once the budget's approved and you have this money, then one of the pieces that you have to understand that this board will do then is manage and implement those projects that are budgeted. And the reason why I put this in there for the simple reason is sustainability. Because you got to realize that you start having all this work and 5 to 7 people doing all of the work, you're going to burn people out pretty fast. I mean, and people have lives, people come and go, these kinds of things. So one of the things I just want to be upfront about is that every time we apply for a grant, there's a grant timeline. And that's just 6 months. That's a 6-month process or 5-month process just to get a grant. That's not even the implementation of all of this stuff. So it's pretty extensive. Again, any organization, if you want to find out what they're doing, follow the budget, and that'll tell you exactly what's taking place. Now, the calculation for, and this is the part that I think is what a lot of people wanted to jump to at the, right away, is that, so what's it going to cost me out of my pocketbook? And to be honest with you, that I wanted to know myself. So the way that you calculate the levy, and I put it in, there's the formula. You take the required revenue. The required revenue would be the revenue that you want to generate in your budget. Okay, so I mean, you can have other revenue in your budget. All right, you would have revenue if we have a GoFundMe, if we have donations, which we have. Those are not covered under the levy. But if you have, you would subtract those pieces out if they're designated for a purpose. Would subtract those out. What would be left would be your your required revenue through levy. Then you take the total taxable property assessment value of the Lake District. You divide that and multiply it by 1,000. So in this example, I used $49,000. As I said in the bottom explanation in the note, $49,000 is the typical, it's the average tax levy of the 248 lake districts in the state of Wisconsin. That's the average. Okay, it's just an average for, don't come up to me and say, you guys are going to levy $49,000. I don't know what we're going to levy because we haven't done the budget yet. That's an average. People wanted to know what the dollars were. I put the average down. And so if you work that through, that gives you a mill rate. Now, there's two things about talking about mill rate. You can express a mill rate as a percentage of 1,000, or you can express a mill rate for in dollars and cents. Okay, this one is expressed in dollars and cents because everybody, I know when I went to all of the meetings, everybody was talking about 250. Okay, everybody went to the 250 mark. Well, $49,000 gets you to 30 cents per thousand is what it is. Okay, so the average, taking the average budget of the 249 or whatever lake districts, applying our total assessed valuation of the lake district, which is 162 million. That gives you a mill rate of 30 cents. Okay. Now, the next part of that is, so what's that mean to me? Well, you take that 30 cents and you take your property tax is going to be your assessed valuation of your house, multiply it by the levy, the mill rate, and divide it by 1,000. And then that will give you how much you owe. Now, if you look there, I did it for you. I took $250,000 property. That is the average property value on the lake. How did I get that? The 743, I took the total of the 162 million, divided it and by the 743 deeded pieces of property. That is equal to approximately 250. I was like 249 something or another. And that gives you a valuation or a proposed tax rate of $75.33. I even took it down below. I did the same thing and I divided it out by 100,000. So 100,000 will give you a $30 increase. $200,000 property will give you 60,000. Now, I want to say this. Remember, if one of the townships goes through and reassesses between now and the time that your taxes come out, that's gonna change that 162 million. So you realize it, but it's just gonna fluctuate it just a little bit. But this is approximate and it's based on what we know now. I can't control what the townships do and those kinds of things. So that is it in a nutshell. So that's kind of the explanation. That should give hopefully some context to what the tax impact is going to be, where we're going to be at, and those kinds of things. Questions from the board?
Not for me.
Kind of how government functions.
Yeah, well, every government that taxes uses this formula, whether it be a school district, whether it be a town board, whether it be the county. This is how it works. And so this is this is the same, it's not a special formula for us, is what I'm. So just to summarize, two things. Number one, you got to have a budget to be able to figure out what your tax impact is. This is only an example. I repeat, this is only an example. The second thing is, this also gives you an idea of once the budget gets approved. And you can do the calculations at the annual meeting if you want, or what your individual, use this explanation to calculate it out.
So at the annual meeting and the budget's proposed and the vote by the landowners or property owners,
Residents and property owners.
residents and property owners, thank you. Is that a line item veto or a all or none? How does that work?
Well, the annual meetings that I've been involved in is, first of all, there is an explanation of the budget. And so that you just don't have people come up, hand them a sheet. You explain what's in that. And then there is a motion from the floor, being the audience. And then they can vote it up or down. Now, if there's amendments to that, I would say that they can vote on that. They also vote on the projects also. So,
So those are line items in the budget.
right. So I don't know that the line item is the correct term to use, but they have a say into what goes on in the annual meeting.
Yeah, because they can take the budget, the board can come up with a budget. Somebody can submit an amendment to the budget to basically strip something out that they, don't want. If it's then that motion is approved, then I believe that can be put to a vote.
Right.
And then that item could be essentially taken out based on the vote.
Remember, you can take out or put in too,
Yeah.
because there can be some projects that would come forward that people want to put in.
And some of this that's kind of why, we're encouraging, folks to come to these meetings so that we know some of those potential projects or things that people don't want, so that it's something that the board can evaluate, so that we're not all just doing this on our own to come up with ideas and things.
Well, and also I think it's important that our budget, that people understand that the budget workshops are going to be done in public.
Yep.
So it's not Al putting a whole bunch of figures together and then shooting them out an email. And so what we have is done in front of everybody. Now, we may or may not take public comment because we have to get work done. It isn't going to be, free for all, but there will be time when people can watch. It'll be a meeting in public, not the public meeting of the annual meeting. Everybody will get their chance once the budget is done and finalized and put forward. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Other comments? Is this something that you would consider useful?
Yeah, this is a great
Very.
starting point. Yeah. It really explains it and again, it's like you said, this is a proposed number. As we have meetings, we're going to discuss potential expenses and things that will help determine the budget at that point. Right now, we have none of that. We don't have any potential expenses. We only have some donated money. So all of that is going to be evaluated over the next bunch of meetings that we have.
Correct. Correct. Would this be something that you'd want to put on the website, or is that?
Yeah.
To,
Absolutely. I know people, that's the first thing they ask. What's it gonna cost me? Which is a good question. And if this quells some of their fears, then it's a good thing.
And I think it's important to also do what you just did to explain this is an exercise. You're seeing potential that this is not, this is not the budget. This is a potential budget, just so you can see where numbers would fall.
right. Well, again, I hit back at this, and it's been one of my comments from the beginning, is that part of building trust with our constituents is to be, as you've said in the past, Jim, open to criticisms, and we may not agree on different things, but at least this is the explanation. It's out in front. We're not doing things, but we have gone so far to try to do everything out in the open. I didn't even attempt to get Zach Raff's. I didn't want to change the budget 24 hours in advance of a meeting.
Agenda.
Or agenda.
Yeah.
That it just would seem like we're trying to do something.
Yeah.
I'd rather come back and have another meeting than to try to, kind of work things through that way. Okay, well, you can put it on if anybody, if you don't have any problems with it, we can put it on the website, and then it'll be an example. I did check it over. If anybody sees any errors, I checked the math 5 times and had 2 other people do it. So I don't like putting out things that aren't accurate. Okay, budget process review. Okay, discussion and action section of the agenda, legal representation. Again, I'm going to count on you, Jim.
Well, I've not had a lot of luck with that. In fact, I think it was my last person I was attempting to line up basically shot me down just before the meeting. Because he has decided to retire and his law license expires on June 1st. But he was like my natural choice because he's a municipal lawyer.
Right.
And I tried to get him to see if he can send some possible recommendations, but also in an email that I sent out to everybody and asked specifically, Tom, you've had some interactions with folks at other lake districts and they may have some recommendations. Because I mean, my preference would be to have a local lawyer do it. But if there isn't somebody that's local that can step up, then someone at least who's had experience working with another lake district might even be more advantageous. And with the fact that you can do everything online and through email and all that, it's not that big of a deal. The other thing I looked into was that a Legal Shield subscription thing, and they don't work with municipalities or quasi government entities and that type of thing. It's strictly businesses and personal legal representation.
Right. There's Boardman Clark, and I believe they are in Madison or Milwaukee.
Yeah, they were at the
Right.
meeting.
They have a guy that specializes, but they're gonna be a little more expensive than, having some local person.
Well, the flip side is if they charge hourly and it's someone who's local who isn't as well versed. The hours may add up because it's not something that they're familiar with, whereas
You're
it's,
gonna be doing research.
so it would be a thing that if there are other lake districts using different individuals that they are familiar with.
I have a couple of names that I could contact too. just
Lake
so-
Altoona has a lake district and they most certainly have to have an attorney.
So does Cumberland.
So, yeah, so either one of those two we can contact and find out.
We don't have to use them, but we should let them
Yeah.
know who we are if we're gonna need an attorney for something. I have, Lake District bylaws. That's something that's on our docket. Here's a couple of thoughts and I'll throw them out and then you guys can respond to them. Do we want to tackle the bylaws right now? In light of the fact that we're down one person, we're going to have, we got to put a budget together. Do we have the time to put the bylaws together? Or do we push that to the after the annual meeting?
I think we push it until after the annual meeting. In the meantime, we can just use chapter 33.
It's up to you guys. And here's my thinking, by suggesting that, and is that we have to have a budget done by July 5th. I put down, that gives us 30 days before the annual meeting. It's May. We have to fill a vacancy position, plus put a budget together, plus get this all out. Are we gonna have time to do the bylaws? Thoughts?
Well, as it says here in the book, they're not necessarily required, but they could be short and sweet, a few key points that could then be voted on at the annual meeting.
There's a wide range of bylaws. I mean, it's from like 3 pages to a whole bunch. There's actually bylaws in here for a lake association, which isn't, it's some different, but but mainly you're talking about filling vacancies, those kinds of things, powers and those types of explanations. So it's up to you.
Well, I guess I'd like to put together a few bullet points that I'd like to see included in the bylaws before I'm no longer on this board,
Okay,
if I don't
okay,
get reelected or whatever.
right. Leave our legacy.
Right.
Okay.
And do we need a motion for that? Because,
Yes.
well, I'd make a motion that, Jerry take a stab at putting together at least, some potential bylaws that we can, review and maybe even vote on by next meeting as to submitting for the annual meeting.
I second that. See how it works?
He
So-
kind of volunteered himself, so
And
I just
I'm
helped
fine with that
nudge
too,
him.
Gary. If you're willing to do it. I think all of us could send him a couple of bylaws. A couple of areas that would interest us as well, right?
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. That's good.
Okay.
Yeah, it
No.
it certainly is much better if all of us are
Okay,
putting our specific thoughts,
Well, I was hoping you
areas of
wouldn't just
interest. No,
make up
yeah.
all rules yourself.
No, no.
Right.
No.
Let's, there's been a motion and I'll second that. There's been a motion and second that, to put together a, draft, bylaws to be approved by the board, to be presented at the next meeting with input from everybody. You're right. I didn't mean to make it sound like you were totally responsible for it, but there are some things that
You
I
jumped
would
at
like.
it pretty quickly though.
Yeah, and I made the motion with the thought that you would just at least start that process.
Right.
So.
There's been a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Just a reminder, that's a one-way flow of information. Just so that the public knows, we don't have electronic meetings and we don't talk to each other as a group on the internet. That would constitute a open meetings law violation. Which there again, besides being a committee, down to 4 now people with no money and no guidance or very little guidance, I should say. There's some things that are very, very specific, and that is one of them that we do not have reply alls to everybody. And we're very, very careful about that. So I want you to, I'm very conscientious of it. The reason why the fine, it used to be $35 for a open meetings violation, but that money is pittance compared to the loss of trust that you would have with your constituents. And so we try very hard not to do that. But we have not done that.
Nope.
Been specific about that. Okay, annual meeting preparation. This is job number 1. Meeting place. I have 2 prices for meeting venues. UW Stout, the Great Hall. I have given the number of about 500 is what there's 700 and some people, but if we get 500 on a Saturday in August, I think we'll be doing pretty good. The Great Hall is $565.
That's actually not that bad.
Right now, it may be extra for the microphones, you know how that
Sure,
goes.
yeah.
But you said you had something. Menominee Auditorium is $30 an hour on the weekdays and $65 an hour on the weekend.
Menominee, is that Menominee High School?
Menominee High
Okay.
School, I'm
Sure.
sorry. Menominee High School. I was just at a middle school play there. It has a venue, I think they seat about 750 people. I looked at the nice thing. My own druthers, Stout would be nice. It's a good atmosphere. The parking is, you're gonna make people walk distances. Like I said, I was just at a middle school play at the high school. You park, you walk in, it's right there. You have comfortable seating. You have a stage. I would say that we don't, for us, we don't need to be on the stage. That seems a little high, that we could put us in front of on the floor, and you can still see by sitting in the chairs, you can still see the group on the floor, or we could go on the stage. They have the sound system and all of that right there. And so I figure for 5 hours, that would cost us $325.
It's a good price.
But Tom, you were gonna look at,
I
to-
checked at the Stout Craft House, and the rental of their room would be $600. They do have a sound system, but they are limited to just a couple of microphones. And I talked to them the day after our last meeting. So they might not be open any longer because they do book quickly. I also checked at Lucette. And I didn't even get a price from Lucette because their new room has a seating capacity of 350.
Okay.
So I just moved past that.
So. What do you think?
I
Well,
think the high school is a no-brainer.
yeah, the high school seems to be the most affordable. So you said they have a sound system. They would have enough microphones for 4 to 5 of us up there then?
I'd imagine they had microphones for all the kids in the play. I don't know if they charge us extra for that or not, but I was thinking that if we wanted to, we could. As I was looking at it, not that the play wasn't good, it was good. I was enthralled, but at the end, if we did like, I've seen it done before. We put speaking microphones, maybe 2, one in the front on the 2 aisles and then one in the back so that people, if they wanted to speak to they could get up and move to the microphones instead of having somebody walk around with a microphone and handing it. That might be a little easier to do it that way. That's what I came up with.
You looking for a motion?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to book the high school auditorium on August,
5th,
what was it?
5th,
5th for our annual meeting.
right.
Second it.
Okay, I have a motion by Tom, second by Jim. To go with the high school auditorium. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, speaking of annual meeting preparation, did I send my updated I didn't, my plan of work out to you. As you know, I've been kind of pushing on some of these things. I went through and I will send this out to you guys after the meeting. But I figure for the annual meeting that we have to have all our materials collected and ready to go to the printer by July 5th. That gives us 30 days to get it from the printer to L&M and it has to be mailed 14 days in advance. Now, if we can't get it from the printer to L&M,
I think L&M was gonna print it for us in that estimate.
that's even better.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, they're the ones that are doing the current Dunn County broadband survey, and not to mix things, but if you got a postcard or haven't filled it out, please do.
took it already.
But yeah, we used L&M for that and they were able to print it, ship it, do the whole thing.
Right.
So then that eliminates a step, gives a little bit more time for getting it out.
Right.
They were able to actually do that really quickly for the broadband survey. I want to say that they got it and sent it out in 1 week. So it's not to give us a false sense of security as far as that we have this extra time. Should still aim for that, but we should get like a firm time from them as to what that deadline is. And for the broadband survey, they actually beat their deadline.
Well, and I think it would be good for their scheduling to know exactly, we're gonna have a budget summary, we'll have an agenda. And then we have to have a list of all those addresses and just how that all happens. Now, did you do that?
Yeah, printing was $98, mail preparation was $145, postage was $210 for a total of $453.
And so that was just a
Estimated 650 addresses, and it was a double-sided notice,
single sheet.
single
folded-
sheet.
Folded? and-
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so that kind of gives us what we have to work with. I still think I'd rather have people get that stuff 16 days in advance of the annual meeting than
Yeah,
right
yeah,
on 14. And
Yep.
I don't know about you guys, but sometimes we don't get mail. And so if we count on them getting exactly right, we need to build in a little time. So the reason why I say that is because we have to then, with our budget and our agenda and all the details, we should be ready by August or after the 4th of July. We should be ready to roll on the annual meeting. And
The
so.
big thing is, what day will the county have mailing list ready for us to use?
The mailing list that we will have, I think the mailing list is pretty easy to get. That comes off that spreadsheet that we had with the
But we'll have,
tax.
but we'll have to have a new one as of June 1st, right?
Right,
Okay.
right. Up until that point. And
so that spreadsheet has the property owners and such, right?
right.
Where do we get the renters?
That, I asked that question when we were at the workshop.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because that's where I learned the difference between resident and owner. Because if you think about it, if you're an owner, you and your wife, let's say, own a house, and then you rent it out to your brother and sister-in-law, that's 4 votes for one property.
I was
and-
thinking about that too. What if it's a corporation of 20 people that owns it?
Well, then you get 1 vote.
Okay, because it's a corporation in that case.
So
Ah,
it's, I don't make the rules but that's, and you have to be, again, I'm stressing this for the audience, you have to be in attendance to vote. No proxy votes, those kinds of things. And so.
And that is by state
Statute.
statute. We've had a couple of requests. Can you allow absentee voting? And you
Right.
can't because it's required by state law. And if you want that changed, talk to your friendly legislator.
Right. And there may be some work on changing some of that, especially absentee part,
Mhm.
that you can't make the meeting. But anyway. But because if you think about it, because of the function of that assembly is what does the approval. It's pretty hard to vote on something that you've never seen before. Unless it's either yes or no. And so I don't know that there's going to be much change on whether or not you're always going to have to be there, as far as I know. With that being said, we got to start putting the pedal to the metal now. And
So getting back to my question, and it doesn't sound like you got a good answer for that at that meeting. How are you able to determine like renters or people that are residents and not property owners? How do we do that?
well, I think we do the best we can with what we have. And maybe we put on that mailing that if they have renters, that they notify the renters of the meeting. And we have to be specific about that. They said you do the best you can with what you have, and they realize it isn't exact. People come and go, people move. And even if we developed a list today of the people that were renting, they may not necessarily be the renter there in July
Mhm.
when we send it out. So, you do the best you can. That's why, when people come, you say, make sure we have their names and addresses. And that's the best we can do. So there wasn't a clear answer. I don't know that there's a repository of addresses that we can draw from.
I can't think of any reason that the county would even have that, so.
Right. I don't even think the townships have it. Post office would.
Yeah.
But if, do they share? Okay,
That might be a way to do it.
It wouldn't be addressed to specific people.
Yeah, I would,
just go to the address.
Yeah. but you have to do the whole rural route. But that would mean that all kinds of people that aren't on the lake would be also included in that notification.
probably.
And that may be problematic and on the other end, and that one of the things we're gonna have to have is when they come in, it's gonna be like voting. They're gonna have to check off, they're gonna have to register as they come in that their property, that they're actually, we have to point out that their names are on the list. And if they're not, we picked up a form, Tom and I, when we were at that meeting, we picked up a form that people have to sign that they say that they are actually a resident or a property owner. For example, if you're, my wife, if my wife was not on the tax roll, she would actually get to vote, even though she's not on there because she's a resident. But then we have them sign a form that's saying that they're legal residents, punishable by law. And so there's a process for that. It's gonna probably take us longer to get people to register than it is for the actual meeting.
We should have a upcoming meeting agenda item for the process of check-in, identification, and voting,
Right.
because it sounds like it's not very,
Yeah, we'll have to simply because if someone's in a trust, it's different than mom and pop renting it to another person.
Well, and I'm also thinking like
Trust properties, corporation properties
the
are
login
completely different.
has, I don't know how many apartments are in that building, but then each of those residents, renters in there would get a vote
Correct.
in addition to whoever owns that property now.
Correct. Yeah, it's not a, it's pretty, it sounds, you gotta talk it through a little bit. The more you talk about it, the clearer it is. But I can tell you that it is not, there are, I can almost guarantee you there's gonna be one or two people that are gonna show up that are gonna be the exceptions to every rule that we just talked about. And we're gonna have to decide. Do we let them vote or not? And
And what was said at the conference was that the state of Wisconsin leans towards inclusivity when it comes to voting.
Right.
So
I would, I like that signature page that actually makes them sign something that they're declaring themselves a legal resident.
hence part of the process that we need to determine and have set up to facilitate for 500 or how many people come through the door,
Right, exactly.
which is not a small undertaking.
Yeah, cause it's like, you know, do we do it with, you know, paper stuff? Do we have
Wristband.
somebody manning a laptop and entering stuff in that way? And then who staffs that? Back, yeah, you bring up a great point.
I mean, when we say who is all in favor, what are we gonna do? Count? And if you're in the building, but you're not able to vote, or You
My-
can't be in the building if you're, yeah, how do we handle all that?
My, talking to people that have done this, that what they do is they give them cards. So, you would get a card. Let's say that.
We
you
don't
get-
have to decide it tonight, but
Right.
it needs to be an agenda item.
But
Yeah.
there is ways to do it.
Yeah.
Electronically, if we had money, we could do, everybody would get a little clicker thing. And I know my wife did that for the Synod annual meetings and stuff, that everybody got a vote electronic, boom, up on the screen, instantaneous. But there again, it costs money. I think a 3x5 note card is cheaper. So July 5th is our deadline. To be honest with you, a lot of this centers around the budget. I mean, basically, it's all budget. The only other thing on there that I would say is up for discussion is there has been some talk of expanding the 3 elected positions to 5 or more representation. So that will be on anything. The other thing is anything for consideration at the annual meeting has to be done. We cannot consider anything that isn't on the agenda. So anything that's on the agenda has to be submitted to us prior to that July 5th. Otherwise, if it's not on the agenda, just like tonight, if it's not on the agenda, it isn't happening. But that's not my rules. That's the state of Wisconsin's rules. So have we talked that to death, or have I?
July 5 is deadline.
I'll send out my plan of work and kind of some notations that I have. Okay, we're down to the fun part of the evening. Recognition of community donations and donors. And so at this time, just for those of you that it's their first meeting, remember 3 meetings, this is only our 3rd meeting. 3 meetings ago, we started out, we didn't have anything as far as money, and people have been donating. I got a suggestion from Betty Danielson. She was the lady that spoke at the last meeting. And she was an officer in a foundation. And she recommended that we have a benefactor component of our website, that where we can list corporations and donors, that people that have been benefactors to us in that we could Pete Heimdahl has donated some money, and Jim, your company has done the website. I think that's a kind of a nice way to, if we get some business partners. I mean, we're just so new at this that we don't have, but I think that that's something that we should consider doing.
Yeah,
and
we
adding
can
to
even
it.
have it so that someone who donates something and wants to like remain anonymous,
Right.
that got $1,000 donation from
Right.
somebody or
Right.
whatever.
Right, anonymous.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's something that we could do, and
Pretty easy.
be real nice to do that and have a benefactor program. It needs to be a little more fleshed out than that, but you get the gist of, I thought it was a really good suggestion. And she emailed me, that. So with that, Tom, did you want to start it off by recognizing some people?
Yeah, actually, there are several people here tonight that have agreed to donate money. One is Pete Heimdahl. He was the first, and I want to thank Pete for getting things started. The second one was Mark Kinney, who I think Pete twisted his arm after the meeting and said, guess what, Mark, you're going to donate as well. So thank you, Mark. The Bokers contacted me asking if there was a way that they could donate. And the Bokers live on the lake and they are donating as well. So that's another big thank you. Julie Lammer was at our meeting last month and offered to make a donation for each house she sells on Lake Tainter. And she's here to present a check tonight, and rumor has it she has something like 4 more properties that are closing in the next month. So we should expect some more checks next month. Julie, make sure they're on time, please. There were 2 others that were going to be here. Tim Maves and Dustin Shackleton. Unfortunately, they must not have been able to make it on time. So we'll have to wait on those donations until another meeting.
Okay.
But I don't want to speak for the whole group, but I want to speak for myself and saying thank you. That's extremely generous, because not only are you donating tonight, but you're going to donate further when we tax you to death. I mean, when we tax you. So thank you.
And I would just like to reiterate what Tom said, thanking people for their contributions, whether it be financial, and there's also been people that have donated their talents and those kinds of things. And I think that's just as important, that we have that. That's one of the great things that the first couple of meetings I was going, what am I going to expect as far as people in the audience and everything else like that. And it's been really rewarding that people have stepped forward and said, here, we understand you guys are operating without a whole lot, and people have stepped forward. And I think it speaks to our lake community that people are generous with their time and talents. And so for that, thank you. On the for the recognition, those people that have donated, don't leave at the end of the meeting, because I want to take a picture and maybe submit it to the paper for some maybe a little headline or a little byline that says these people have donated, and thanking them publicly through the paper. That would be good.
We can put it on the website too.
And we'll
Everybody
put it
would
on
be
the
okay.
website also.
Yeah. So thank you.
Okay, we have 2 board meetings to plan for. The first one would be a discussion for replacement of Zach Rapp. I would say that should be not only for Zach, but it should be a budget meeting.
Yep.
Let no meeting go to waste.
Mhm.
If we're gonna be together, we might as well work on it. So a budget meeting and replacement of Zach Rapp. So what's your calendars look like, gentlemen?
We probably want to do it as soon as possible, right?
Yep.
And we want it to be a Thursday. Correct?
Thursdays when this room is typically available. It is not available. I'm looking at the calendar here in 2 weeks. It appears to be available next week, unless that's going to be too quick to meet. I mean, it might be too quick to have budget stuff unless we're going to workshop budget stuff. But I think if we're replacing a board member, I think doing that sooner rather than later is a key thing.
How about how's the 18th look for you?
I'll be back the 1st of June if Thursdays are, I mean, I'm out of the country until Memorial Day.
Oh.
So it looks like the 1st.
June first?
Yeah.
Okay, June first it is.
And that'll just be tentative because I do need to confirm that this room's available, but I'm almost guaranteed that it is because it's the first of the month and it's a Thursday and almost every committee that meets in this room
Right.
is second week to the end of the,
Okay, June first, and then, let's, put the vacancy, and, also, not only vacancy, but then let's do a little bit of budget work, at least get,
Yep.
the framework laid out for that budget, because I will, in this book, there is a sample budget, format to go by.
So then we're gonna have to turn around and probably meet on the 22nd again?
Yep.
Or the 29th, whatever.
yeah. We're gonna have to have at least one or two more meetings in the middle of that then.
What about taking in, then the June meeting go the 15th instead of the 8th?
That's fine. Five PM.
June 15th, okay?
Works for me.
Okay, then that gives us 2 weeks in between there to finalize the budget and to put the budget forward. Because we may have to have a meeting after that draft budget to bring us together to approve the budget. Unless it goes so well in 2 meetings that,
One can hope.
I hope, but let's give us a little room in case we have to. That gives us a little extra room there. And then that's okay, agenda items on the, there's going to be agenda items in the form of bylaws.
And this is on the 15th.
This is on the 15th.
We want to discuss the check-in process.
Voting and check-in.
Right. Annual meeting.
Yes.
And we want,
Logistics.
hope maybe Jim will have some information on crowdsource funding.
Yep.
Excuse me. Are you gonna finalize the high school?
I will finalize the high school. What else? I'd really like that 15th meeting to nail down the annual meeting and just focus on getting that sucker done so that,
Okay. Get it done.
because we're gonna need some volunteers to man some tables. And like I said, I put down 5 hours. I figured the annual meeting is only gonna take 2 hours. It gives us an hour, a half hour to set up, half hour to take down, and probably 2 hours to get people all registered. Realistically, for the first time through. But all of us have had convention experience, and getting tables for registration is just part of that process. Okay,
Sounds good.
motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion is seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Meeting is adjourned at 6:49.
Wow.
We're getting faster, gang.